Good morning, everyone. So today we are going to discuss about global food security. But before we proceed to the discussion, we all know that food is a vital resource for humans, regardless of race, nationality, religious affiliation, economic status, or educational attainment. It is a basic necessity for survival. Therefore, it is important for nations to secure a constant supply of food for the consumption of people. However, it is a fact that food security, defined as the physical and economic access at all times to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food for people to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. So, these are the lesson objectives. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain the different aspects of food security, identify the food insecurity issues faced by households, communities, and counties, describe the different social, political, economic, and environmental conditions that affect food security, and propose actions for communities, civil society actors, and governments to achieve food security. For the introduction, so there is more than sufficient food produced globally to meet the food needs of all people on the planet. Despite this, an estimated 124 million people experience acute hunger today, approximately 40 million higher than the numbers from 2 years ago. In addition to that, stunted children are approximately 151 million and wasted children are estimated to be 51 million worldwide. So, furthermore, small-scale farmers, fishers, and rural workers produce approximately 70% of food globally, but are among the most vulnerable sector to food insecurity. This data, reflecting the world's status in hunger, show the urgency of ensuring global food security. So, food security is projected to remain a worldwide issue for the coming decades. Food security occurs when every person, every time, is able to physically and economically access sufficient, safe, and nutritious food, depending on their dietary needs and food preferences toward an active and healthy lifestyle. But in contrast, according to Food and Agricultural Organization or FAO, food insecurity is the phenomenon when people do not have adequate physical, social, or economic access to food. So the concept of food security gained prominence in the 1970s. First, the hunger was seen as a lack of food supply. The focus government programs to make food available was in boosting of agricultural production and maintaining price stability in food. And that is what we call food availability. However, in 1981, Amartya Sen argued that hunger or starvation is not only about the supply of food, but the people's lack of access to food despite the availability of food. This resulted in broadening the concept of food security to include access to food. At yan yung tinatawag natin food accessibility, which are located in the wider concerns of poverty and development. In 1986, World Bank introduced that food insecurity can be a permanent or temporary phenomenon, giving rise to the ideas of chronic and transitory hunger. Chronic food insecurity recognizes the perennial problem of food insecurity, while transitory food insecurity talks about the momentary shortage. This pushes policy to recognize that sufficient food must be accessible at all times. At yan tinatawag natin, food stability. Then finally, the food security was extended to include issues with food quality. It ensures the utilization of food that meets people's nutritional balance, traditions, and preferences, and that's food utilization. Hence, the important aspects of food security are availability, access, utilization, and stability.
Moving on to measurement for food security and food insecurity. To understand the phenomenon of food security and food insecurity, various measures and indices have been developed. These measures and indices became the basis for action to eradicate food insecurity and demand accountability from governments. Measures and indices can encompass analyses of causes and or effects, either qualitative or quantitative, and may be done in several levels, from household levels to national levels. Some indicators are expressed in the Millennium Development Goals or MDGs and the Sustainable Development Goals. So, ang example po ng indices that is used for food insecurities are the Global Hunger Index and the Hunger Reduction Commitment Index. Next is the prevalence of undernourishment or POU and the prevalence of moderate and severe food insecurities and the Population Food and Agriculture Organization or FAO. POU measures hunger in several levels, in the regional and global levels, by gathering data on food availability, consumption, and energy requirements. Some factors being measured are the daily per capita food consumption, human energy requirements, and agricultural production. On the other hand, the prevalence of moderate and severe food insecurity in the population collects data through interviews regarding people's experiences of difficulty in accessing food. So, ang POU daw is the percentage of the population whose habitual food consumption is insufficient for provide the dietary energy levels that are required to maintain a normal, active, and healthy life. Ang FAO naman po is a specialized agency of the United Nations leading international efforts to defeat hunger. So this is one of the example na nabanggit ko kanina na ang example ng indices. So, the Global Hunger Index. Indices means index po. So, Global Hunger Index is published by Concern International and Welthungerhilfe. Welthungerhilfe is the German word. In English, ito po ay World Hunger Help. So, sila po ay one of the largest private aid agencies sa Germany na politically and religiously independent. So, ang organization po ito ay they are fighting for zero hunger by 2030. So, it looks into indicators such as the share of population related to undernourishment referring to insufficient caloric intake, child wasting referring children with low weight in relation to their height or low weight for height, child stunting referring to children under the age of 5 that have low weight in relation to their age, and child mortality or under 5 mortality rates. So yung mga children na under the age of 5 years old na mga namamatay. So basically, ang GHI or Global Hunger Index is a tool that tracks and measures hunger on a global level, regional, and national level. Now, this is the second example, the Hunger Reduction Commitment Index. So, ang Hunger Reduction Commitment Index or HRCI, initiated by the Institute of Development Studies, looks into 3 themes that measures government's political commitment in attaining food security, policies and programs, frameworks, and public expenditures. Some of the indicators being measured in DI are institutional coordination, government intention and action, analytical rigor, learning and adaptation. So apparently, ang HAN are CI assigns government and political commitment score based on how committed they are to combating hunger and undernourishment.
Factors affecting food security. Food security is a multidimensional issue ensuring the availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability of food, and are linked to several social, political, economic, cultural, and environmental processes and factors. Some of these factors are food supply, food prices, income, and sudden changes in the context. So, the first factor is food supply. Food supply is also connected with conditions in agricultural production. This involves issues of rural farmers, usually small-scale producers, and have an important role in producing food in developing countries. So, ang food supply nakadepende sa agricultural production. Kung di maayos ang kondisyon ng agricultural production, hindi rin sapat ang food supply. Kaya dapat napagtuunan ng pansin ang mga magsasaka dahil usually sila ang may important role sa pag-produce ng pagkain sa bansa, according to Scambasher 2010.
Food prices. Changes in national and global economic policies and process may lead to increases in oil and food prices. In the Philippines, inflation hit 4.5% in April 2018, leading to a drastic rise in food prices. Figure 1 shows that by 2019, inflation shows down to 3%, but food prices are still higher than 2018 prices. High prices of food can compromise the food security of citizens. People's income. So another problem associated with food security is the lack of people's access to food because of poverty. Despite the availability of food, people without economic access to buy food may not meet their food needs. The minimum wage in Metro Manila amounting to 512 pesos is barely sufficient to meet food and other needs. The most income-poor Filipinos are also vulnerable to food prices increases.
People's income. Another problem associated with food security is the lack of people's access to food because of COVID-19 laws 2014. Despite the availability of food, people without economic access to buy food may not meet their food needs. The minimum wage in Metro Manila amounting to 512 is very sufficient to meet food and other needs. Iwan Foundation. The most income-poor Filipinos are also vulnerable to food price increases.
Hi everyone, so right now I am going to discuss to you the changes and shocks in social and natural environments. Variability and shocks in the social and natural environment may affect food availability, accessibility, and stability. So for instance, climate change may affect the timing and length of growing and harvesting seasons, amount of water supply, and degradation of sources such as erosions. In the Philippines, farmers may experience lower yields due to the scarcity of rainfall during El Niño phenomenon. This will result to decrease in food supply and income poverty and hunger. UN reports that more than half of the 815 undernourished people come from the countries in conflict. Impact of El Niño to northern Philippines is that approximately 2.5 million are lost in metric tons of rice and corn since the start of the year. As the outcome, El Niño limited the country's recovery from the global meltdown that slowed last year's growth to 0.9% only. Thank you.
Let's proceed to the globalization and food security. Food security that is linked to the complex process of food production, consumption, and distribution intersect with the issues of trading, reforms in agriculture, as well as rural development. So ang food security daw ay nakakonekta sa paggawa, pag-consume at pag-distribute nito sa mga tao. Tumutukoy rin ito kung paano ang pag-trade at ang problema sa pagtanim at yung pag-develop ng mga rural areas. So sa madaling sabi, ang food security ay kung paano ka makakaipon ng pagkain sa darating na panahon. Economic globalization involves foreign trading of food. This encompasses the creation of a global supply chain or the process involving the production, manufacturing, consumption, and disposal happening across different national borders. Some issues in the supply chain include contamination and the lack of a mechanism to trace where food comes from. Cultural globalization also creates changes in people's taste, preference, and consumption of food. For instances, transnational fast food corporations have operated in different countries. Some of the biggest fast food chains are McDonald's, Burger King, Starbucks, KFC, Pizza Hut, and Subway. In 1982, 7.5% of total government expenditure went to agriculture. The spending decreased to 3.3% in 1988. Trade liberalization in the Philippines, marked by the joining of the Philippines in the World Trade Organization, required the country to eliminate quota for agricultural imports, allowing the entry of cheap imported agricultural product that discourage local farmers. So ang sabi, dahil sa panahon ngayon dumadaan tayo sa globalization kung saan yung mga lupa ay tinatayuan ng mga building. So dahil doon nawawalan tayo ng taniman. Dahil sa globalization, pumasok na yung tinatawag na import ng iba't ibang produkto o pagkain galing sa ibang bansa na magiging dahilan para masapawan yung mga farmers dito sa Pilipinas. Commitments to achieve food security. In 1996, the World Food Summit was convened by the Food and Agriculture Organization in Rome, where UN member states committed to eradicate hunger and reduce undernourished people all over the world. The UN members in this summit pledged to commit to a plan of action. It is a continuous effort to eliminate hunger in all countries, with a short-term goal of decreasing the number of undernourished individuals to half. This commitment was later reaffirmed during the UN Millennium Summit in 2000, that resulted in the formulation of the Millennium Development Goals. The first goals of MDGs is to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger.
This goal has three targets: to significantly decrease the number of people with a daily income below $1.25, to attain full constructive and decent employment for all, and to significantly decrease the number of people suffering from hunger. So these three targets of goal are giving more people benefits through nutrition assistance programs, increasing benefits amounts, and addressing unemployment to help reduce poverty and hunger.
In 2015, UN members states adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Agenda. This encompasses the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that will guide governments, private sectors, and civil societies to address the global issues of poverty, inequalities, and climate change. Sustainable Development Goal number 2 is to achieve zero hunger. Aside from this, organizations and movements critical of too much market-driven food production system espouses the idea of food sovereignty as an approach to achieving food security. Food sovereignty focuses on promoting the well-being of small-scale farmers and producers, landlords, farmers, and rural farm workers instead of prioritizing large-scale corporate and liberalized agriculture and food production. So these commitments push governments to take all necessary actions to combat hunger and poverty through different policies. Programs include boosting agricultural productivity, making agricultural resilient to climate change, increasing investment in agriculture, and correcting trade processes. That's all. Thank you.